Jake Paul has our bath unit. He posted that all on social media right before his big fight. People that want to have a luxurious bath, they can get our unit that turns your bath water into hydrogen water. And that is going to be beneficial for collagen, for wrinkles, because hydrogen will stimulate collagen synthesis. And so we can have that in our body. We can have wonderful aesthetics. And it's another pathway for hydrogen to get in the body. But the most effective method of a delivery is in water.
Dr. Paul has a doctor of naturopathy and has spent 25 years dedicated to natural health, pioneering the development of hydrogen-enriched water technologies.
People drink the water 2 weeks later. People that, if they even touched with their tongue something gluten, they would be out for 3 days in pain. They no longer have any inflammatory response or issue with eating gluten. And these are people that were gluten intolerant for 10 years or more minimum. There are studies showing.
Hi, my name is Chris Burris. I'm a longevity expert and the chief scientist at a lab focused on a longevity molecule. My primary focus is to help people live longer and better lives with science. Make sure to subscribe and share so you and your friends can live longer and better. Well, actually, so you and your friends can live beyond the norms.
Hi, and welcome to the next episode of the Live Beyond the Norms Health and Longevity Podcast. Hydrogen is on the mind of so many biohackers these days. We have a sense that hydrogen has amazing potential, and I wanted to dig into that potential with our next guest, Dr. Paul Barattiero. Dr. Paul has a doctor of naturopathy and has spent 25 years dedicated to natural health, pioneering the development of hydrogen-enriched water technologies. He didn't do that the whole 25 years, but he's been in the health industry for 25 years. You want to understand if hydrogen should be part of your routine. You want to understand why it should be part of your routine. Dr. Paul is the expert to answer our questions about hydrogen. Dr. Paul, thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, such a pleasure, such an honor. Thank you.
All right, so before we jump into hydrogen, I wanted to go further back, much further back. What was it like growing up, little Paul? Where did you grow up? What were your parents like? If there was some event or someone you could pinpoint as the reason you would be focused on health and ultimately become a hydrogen expert and own a company delivering hydrogen, water, and gas to people around the world, what or who would that event be?
I love that question. All right, so we're going to have a little bit of fun. So what a lot of people don't know is I was born in Alaska.
Oh, wow.
And 10 or 15 minutes from Santa Claus's house. So this is crazy because the North Pole, I literally I was born in an area called North Star Borough, which is right near Fairbanks, Alaska, which is literally 15 minutes from North Pole, Alaska, where there is a Santa Claus house. So any parents out there, like my wife and I were when my son was young and he was starting to figure out there was no Santa Claus. And my wife was like, babe, please get one more year for me. If you Google Santa Claus house, North Pole, there is actually a Santa Claus house, and Mrs. Claus married my aunt and uncle. So this is a real deal. It's not crazy, but that's where I was born. And the reason I was born there, my parents met in Cape Coral, Florida, and Vietnam was happening. And my father decided he didn't want to be drafted. He would rather enlist in the Air Force. And so he was sent to Eielson Air Force Base and was driving ambulance and became a medic and an LPN and a PA. And so that's how medicine was introduced to our family, as he enlisted. And instead of going to war, he served at Eielson Air Force Base the entire time of the conflict, as we'll call it. And so then after 10 years in Alaska, he went over to Langley. And so he was then stationed at Langley Air Force Base. And I was young. He then was out of the Air Force. He had done his 10 years, and they wanted him to go to Germany, and he didn't think that was a great idea in the 80s. And so we went to Gainesville, Florida, which is really when I was 7, we got to Gainesville, Florida. And so that is really where I grew up, was in North Florida. And I remember getting kicked in soccer, and I didn't know it, but it split open my groin area. And when I got home, I was like, Mom, something doesn't feel right here. And she looks at me and she's like, holy crap, you're split. Well, she didn't say that. She just said, oh my gosh. And she called my father. My parents owned a printing and publishing company that my grandfather had started a few years before. And my father rushed home, took out his bag of goodies, numbed me up, and stitched me up on the kitchen table. So, medicine to me, when I was growing up, was something your father did. And it was a beautiful thing. It wasn't a scary, crazy thing. It was something my dad did. And my father would do interesting things, like when they would have a get together with a bunch of people, he'd bring a centrifuge home from the hospital and he would spin everyone's blood down and have a contest on who had the lowest amount of cholesterol. That was the kind of stuff my dad would do. And so for me, medicine was never scary. It was just something we did. And so I was always more natural leaning because obviously my dad would handle stuff in the house, the kitchen table. My sister one time got a big gash in her leg. He stitched that up and I held her legs down. It wasn't scary to me. So that was my introduction to medicine. I was always very passionate because my mother was from Canada. She didn't really follow the American protocols when I was growing up. So we had a cooked meal. We sat down as a family. There wasn't many packaged foods in our life. And so it was different, now understanding what I understand. I had a gut biome from my mother who was from Canada. I had these things that were different. I never had a disease model. I never got sick much. I really had a lot of wonderful things. We ate what I would understand today, a clean diet, an appropriate diet. And, my parents were always natural. There was no flu vaccine. There was none of that stuff in my household. It was, you ate appropriately and got sleep and did your thing. And if you got feeling sick, you went to bed and slept it off, my mother would use honey and lemon. If you had a throat issue, she would use honey and lemon. And anyways, it was, I guess I didn't know it at the time, but it was more natural.
And so before we started recording, we were having a great time. And I think I understand some of the reason. My dad was in the Air Force.
Yeah.
So I am also a military brat. I moved every 2 years. You were lucky. You got out at 7. I got out at 16. So I was moving every 2 years. My dad, at one point, I wasn't born yet, but was stationed in Fairbanks, Alaska. And I'm sure he was at Langley at some point. He was a pencil pushing Air Force guy, same branch even. Yeah. So super cool. Now your dad and parents were entrepreneurs, which is it like makes a lot of sense. That was not true in my case, and so my dad, he's passed now, but we're often like, I wonder where that comes from. And he had his theories and shared them regularly. And soccer. I also played soccer, which, our generation, soccer was a commie sissy sport. Literally, like that's what people said it was. Yeah. I am so happy how far soccer has come. I don't know how long you continued to play, but soccer.
I only played in PE. What I played was baseball. That's what I actually played. And I wrestled later in high school, but for a short time. But yeah, soccer was just literally in PE and I got kicked. Yeah.
So it left an indelible mark.
Yeah, I'm like, no more of that, please.
Any of that. It's interesting because we lived in a place where they had coordinated the seasons so you could play t-ball and soccer together. And then we moved, as Air Force people do, and that place didn't coordinate. So I had to make a decision and switched over to soccer. All right, so that's awesome. You've been in the health space for a long time, working with orthotic shoes in the beginning, with saunas, hydrogen. I know you're doing red light therapy stuff. Relatively recently, got your doctor of naturopathy. Can you walk us through your career, starting with this kind of orthotic shoes and what pushed you in the direction of getting your doctor of naturopathy and then also getting focused on hydrogen?
Yes, so I was always passionate about preventing disease and being more natural. I didn't like, and I always felt like if God wanted that for us, he would have built that in, right? That kind of a thought process, like our bodies were created to accomplish what they need. We just need to give it the right tools. And so that was kind of all in my mind. And my first company I started was in high school. It was a car stereo and alarms. Obviously, I had my first vehicle and I liked that stuff. So I did that. Quickly found out I didn't like warranties on things when high school kids would plug a subwoofer into the wall and blow it up and go, hey, it blew up. And we're like, no, it didn't. So after I was done and I was 21, I was in Los Angeles. My wife and I were planning to get married. I was trying to figure out what I was going to do. I ended up working with a company that was selling medical supplies, disposable products to nursing homes. And that's kind of where I got the taste for medical supplies. And I ended up going into that career as being an independent manufacturer's rep for 5 different companies in Florida. And then bought properties and made a lot of money in real estate and then started manufacturing companies. So that's kind of how my trajectory went. I was introduced to water 20 years ago because my wife was very sick. So we've been married 31 years now. 10 years into our marriage, my wife was really sick, thyroid issues, gynecological issues, anemia. And I was trying to help her. I didn't know what to do. My focus at that time was diabetes, foot and ankle, and preventing decubitus ulcers and amputations. I wasn't looking at the gynecological area of the body from a medical perspective. I wasn't trying to fix anemia and yeast in the brain and any of these things that my wife had going on. So I was introduced in a way to water that would have a therapeutic effect by some friends of mine at church. And what happened was they needed money to help their business after 9/11. And as we helped them, and it took them a while to pay us back, but once they did, I forgave the interest to help them pay us off faster. And as a thank you, they took us on a cruise. On that cruise was the first day of my wife's menstrual cycle, and I knew she would most likely be down and out for 7 days, it was a 9-day cruise. She wasn't going to see much of that cruise. Well, they had brought water with them, and I thought it was the strangest thing that you would bring on a cruise. But they brought us gallons of water for them, for us, and my wife drank that water. I drank the water too. I didn't sprout wings. I didn't fly. I didn't levitate off the ground. So I was like, whatever, it's water. My wife drank that water and she was like, honey, something's going on. Like my body's craving this water. I don't know what's going on. Within a day and a half, 2 days, she was up and around enjoying the cruise. And I'm like, what the what? And I asked my friends, what the heck is this? And they're like, we don't really understand it. All we know is that hundreds of people per day are buying gallons of water for us. That's what saved our company. So, but we don't really understand it. And so my wife, unbeknownst to me, started getting water from them and she was drinking it. And next thing you know, 6 months later, her menstrual cycle was normal. A lot of things weren't going on that were going on before. And I was like, what is going on? And she's like, oh, I'm drinking that water every day. I feel great. And I'm like, what? So I asked my friends, they didn't know what it was. It was the alkaline water, which the company's out of business that sold them the machines, but they had no idea. The guy that owned the company had no idea what was really going on. He was just saying it's miracle water. And I'm like, you're scaring me. Like you are scaring me when you say that. What is the mechanism of healing? What's going on? And this is where I was at. And so finally I did a deep dive. It took me about 1.5 years and I figured out that the ORP of the water was negative, and that was enough to get my wife's system going. And I wanted to do research and know what would cause ORP, and the answer was hydrogen gas will cause the ORP of water, but it doesn't mean hydrogen gas is staying in the water. The ORP will stay, but the hydrogen gas won't. So then I thought, well, gosh, what does hydrogen gas do? And I couldn't find anything. There was nothing really available in 2005, right? 2006. So 20 years ago, literally. And so I was doing a deep dive and I said, well, what if we find something where hydrogen gas actually is in the water? Because that seems to help. And so as a result of helping my queen, that is what Echo is. Echo is a result of me really helping her to heal and helping her 20 years ago. And so it wasn't like I woke up one day and said, gosh, I would really like a water company or anything like that. It was more like to help my wife. And once we helped her, oh my gosh, I said, there's got to be other husbands who don't know what to do. There's got to be other people that don't know what to do. And so I launched the company because I was very passionate at that time, because I also had my father-in-law who had diabetes, and I gave him some of the water that I had just developed, and his blood sugar levels, blood glucose levels normalized in 3 or 4 days, and he lost 25 pounds. And I'm like, what is going on? Because my whole life was diabetes. And I was like, I'm helping decubitus ulcers. I'm giving people proper shoes so they won't have their feet cut off. But wait a minute, if I can help the disease model, that's like a whole nother level. And that's what I got really passionate about.
Wow, that would certainly hook you in. And congratulations, 31 years of marriage. That's pretty amazing. And
Thank you.
I think she owes you her life. I don't know. That's kind of what
She
I heard
kind
in
of
that
likes
story.
me. I think so. She says she does. So she says a lot. I like you a lot. So
So you've already given some amazing testimonials, but I want to kind of go maybe more on the because I have I've seen you in interviews at this point where you kind of left the stories like it still seems like a miracle water, like, but
uh-huh.
you've dug in and you actually understand what's
Right,
going on
right.
from this kind of more learned perspective. Why do you think that we need hydrogen water or hydrogen gas in general?
Well, that's an excellent question. And that really is the $1 million question, because I didn't create hydrogen. I know that's shocking to everyone, but I didn't create hydrogen. It's been around for a while. But what we understand is that our bodies are designed to produce hydrogen gas, and we call it flatulence. So now, after this podcast, you can all call it fart therapy, because you're going to learn how hydrogen is therapeutic to the body. So you can talk about, your farts in a better way. But the reality, your wife still won't like it, though. I can promise you that. But reality is this: our bodies are designed to produce flatulence, and part of flatulence is hydrogen gas. Hydrogen gas, the primary role is to reduce oxidation or keep oxidation in a normal range so we don't end up getting oxidative stress. And then after that comes inflammation, because the combination of oxidative stress and chronic inflammation is disease. That is your leading cause of disease. So the great engineer that created our bodies and engineered our bodies created a hydrogen generator. That's how critical hydrogen is to the function of our body. And if we really go to a molecular structure, we are carbon hydrogen chains. And there's not a whole lot our body can do properly without hydrogen in it. So we are supposed to produce hydrogen in the gut, and that hydrogen gas will do a lot of things. It's actually mind-boggling how it affects brain, how it affects inflammation in the body, how it affects cholesterol levels, how it affects mitochondrial function and energy production, how it affects fatigue, eyes, heart, disease models like cancer, diabetes, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's. Nowadays, it's really easy to do the study because there's over 1,400 studies, 200 disease models so far, no contraindications, no negatives. And so it's really a beautiful science to watch, because everything from stomach acid in our body, which requires hydrogen, to ghrelin secretions going to the hippocampus, the hypothalamus, and the brainstem require hydrogen to signal ghrelin, what ghrelin, ghrelin, to go to the brain to change cognitive function. So we really have so many things that are in the body that survive or thrive on having hydrogen in them. It's really critical to life. And so really what stops that process, now that we know how important it is, it's gut dysfunction, which I believe well over 90% of the population have gut dysfunction to one degree or another. And we know overuse of antibiotics affect our gut. We know that certain pesticides affect our gut health. We know that heavy metals, we know that stress, we know a lot of things affect our gut or our intestinal tract in general. And the thing that people don't understand, because a lot of people say, oh, I know there's gut issues. I have gut issues. If you have food allergies, most of the time, not all the time, but most of the time, that is a gut issue. You already know if you have gluten and dairy issues, you have a gut issue. And I'm not saying you need to eat gluten and dairy, but you should be able to. You should be able to eat pretty much anything you want and process it if your gut is working properly. So this is what we need to understand, is that our immune function is tied to the bacteria in our gut, and our bacteria in the gut like a certain electrical potential. And so hydrogen can play a wonderful role in reestablishing the tight junctions in the gut, reestablishing the gut environment so that our immune function increases and our body has antioxidant pathways that are all tied to gut that will function properly. So I believe everything starts from the gut. I believe that if your gut is dysfunctioning, that is a cause of way more problems than people understand. And hydrogen will stop all that effectively if we have hydrogen being produced.
Do you think that hydrogen helps to repair the gut biome, or there's chemical reactions that are helping it to tighten those junctions in the gut barrier, or is it all kind of synergistic?
It's all synergistic, but we have studies talking about hydrogen changing the tight junctions. We also have studies showing that because of the electrical potential change in the intestinal tract, that hydrogen can change and have the terrain be proper for the right bacteria to live there. And I can tell you, typically, when they have our water within 2 weeks of drinking it properly, they typically have far less gluten and dairy issues or food allergies in general.
And what does drinking it properly mean?
Well, just not drinking a thimbleful per day.
So that's like one, I know you have a couple of containers and we'll talk about that. So that would be like one bottle per day, or?
One of these flasks, like 3 to 6 of these per day.
Okay,
So
3 to 6.
I would say, a minimum of 16 ounces per day.
Okay. All right, so I think it's fair to say that hydrogen's a postbiotic, right? Similar to like a butyrate and acetate, meaning it's one of the byproducts from your gut bacteria doing the things that it naturally does. Is that a fair statement?
So we don't know. Let's just be honest first. We don't know if it's enzyme reactions, if it is the electrical potential that hydrogen puts into the tissue of the gut, which creates the terrain for the anaerobic microflora. But I have seen a study from Europe showing that anaerobic microflora has to have a 300 to 400 negative ORP for the environment. So what they really like is a negative electrical potential in the tissue of the gut. And then they can kind of set up communities. And so it is believed that that's what hydrogen does, because it is electron rich and it is able to change that terrain and biome, that then the bacteria has a home again and can set up shop. But then there are some people that say, oh, I don't think that's what it is. I think it's enzyme actions. And then I don't know that we know 100% exactly what's going on, but what I do know is that it's predictable. It's what we would call chartable in the medical community. People drink the water 2 weeks later. People that, if they even touched with their tongue something gluten, they would be out for 3 days in pain. They no longer have any inflammatory response or issue with eating gluten. And for 15 years, we've had people do this over and over and over and over, and they have a tremendous, and these are people that were gluten intolerant for 10 years or more minimum. So I don't know that we know if we've elucidated the exact mechanism, but there are studies showing everything I'm saying, but sometimes human wisdom changes.
Yeah, it gets updated.
Yes.
You mentioned, I think this is maybe the second time, ORP.
Yes.
What is ORP? How is it kind of relevant in this space?
So ORP is relevant, but it's really not relevant. So I know that's a horrible way to start an answer, but ORP stands for oxidation reduction potential. You can test water for its ORP levels. Now, who does this? Pool people. People that are balancing your pool water want a positive ORP. Tap water, because it has chlorine in it, will have a positive ORP because it has an oxidative it's not really a charge, but it is a state that the water is in. So what hydrogen will do is it will change that to a negative electrical potential, and it's because hydrogen passed through the water. The problem is it doesn't mean hydrogen's still there. It just means at some point hydrogen was present and it changed the ORP to a negative. And so when you're making water in a flask like this, which is a touch screen, and you can touch it right there and just make your water, and you can see the bubbles coming up. You can see those. When that water hit, this water will have a negative 400, negative 600 ORP. Now that is oxidation reduction potential. So that tells you that if you drink this water, it's going to help you with antioxidant abilities. That's really what it's telling you. But it's actually the hydrogen gas that will be still in our water that allows the benefits in the human body.
So just so I've got some frame. One, if we were to just bubble hydrogen through water, that would reduce its ORP. Is that correct?
It absolutely will, but it doesn't guarantee, just because the ORP is negative doesn't guarantee you there's actually hydrogen in the water.
And then, so it's not because what's causing the bubbles is an electrolysis process, right?
Not with our product.
Oh, what's it? Tell me.
So other products use electrolysis, and that's a problem. All of your alkaline water machines use electrolysis, and it's a problem. Now, they're separating the water, so you have an alkaline and an acid water stream coming out. And in the acid water, you have hypochlorous acid and chlorine and oxygen. And in the alkaline side, you have hydrogen, hydroxides, and then they get electrons, they pick up electrons and become hydrogen gas, H2 gas. Well, we don't do that here. And the reason we don't do that here is because you would have chlorine and hypochlorous acid in here. We are producing only H2 gas. Oxygen is coming out the bottom of the bottle in a port. So this technology is considered a proton exchange membrane, not your traditional electrolysis. But all the cheap bottles on the market that are on Amazon and Alibaba that are junk and kind of like copycats, but they're not really copycats because they're not hydrogen producing, they are all electrolysis. That's why you can buy them for $60, $100, because they're cheap to make. They probably cost $10 in China to make them, but they're not proton exchange membrane. They are electrolysis. And what's the problem with that? Well, you're drinking chlorine and hypochlorous acid into your body, not hydrogen. So if you were to put pure water into the electrolysis chamber, you can't produce anything. If you put water with minerals or tap water in it, well, all of a sudden you're producing hydrogen, but you're also producing chlorine. In our bottle, you can use distilled water, reverse osmosis. You can use spring water, filtered water, whatever you want. You're always going to produce hydrogen, the same amount. But you can put pure water in our products. You cannot in the other products.
So I want two questions. One, what water would you recommend? And two, is there any way, simple test, simple awareness to understand if it's actually hydrogen, right? If you're using the proton filter
exchange membrane. Proton exchange membrane. Yes, there is a product out there that a dear friend of mine, I helped make it many years ago, but he manufactures it, and it's called H2 Blue. It is a reagent, and you can put a drop of it in a little beaker, and if it goes clear, then you have hydrogen gas. If it stays blue, you don't.
Interesting. Interesting. And would that indicate, the presence of chlorine, which is, obviously no, it's just looking at
No.
hydrogen.
No,
So
the way you do chlorine, because I have fun with people who come up with these cheap bottles when we're at trade shows. I'll show you what I use. It's really a simple thing. You can buy at most any store, but it is a chlorine. Here you go.
yeah.
It basically is a chlorine reagent. And so when I'm at the shows, people will come up and go, "Oh, I have a hydrogen bottle and it only cost me $99 or $60." And I'll say, "It's not making hydrogen." So I'll take some of the water out of their bottle, I'll put it in a beaker, and I'll put the H2 blue and I'll say, "See, you don't have any hydrogen." But then I'll take some more water and put it in another little area and I'll put the chlorine reagent and it'll go bright yellow or brown. And I'll say, "You have a ton of chlorine in there." And they're like, "What?" Then I'll take water out of our product. It'll have no chlorine and it'll have tons of hydrogen. And I'll say, "That's the difference. Ours is actually a real patented hydrogen product. These other products are scam products."
Mm. Oh, it sounds like you're using science to show stuff.
It's a new concept we're trying. And
so I think hydrogen is known to be a selective antioxidant. Like,
yes.
what makes it? So what is a selective antioxidant and what makes hydrogen a selective antioxidant?
That's an awesome question. That's why hydrogen became really popular in 2009. Okay. 2009, Nature Medicine published a study, and Nature is one of the most respected periodicals in the entire world. So Nature published a study saying that hydrogen acts as a selective antioxidant. And what it means by selective is hydrogen only reacts with cytotoxic or cell damaging reactive oxygen species. And they specifically in that study referenced the hydroxyl radical, which is the most cell damaging radical in the human body. And so what they were saying is that hydrogen doesn't react with or mess with any radicals that have a physiological role, or in other words, are good for us. Hydrogen only stops bad radicals that are damaging cellular function.
Interesting. We've been, the molecule that I work with, ESS60, has been, people have talked about it as a selective antioxidant, and I think that's incredibly powerful and not common, right? Are there other antioxidants out there that you would consider?
No. And I think the reason they're saying C60 is because C60 immediately combines with hydrogen, and hydrogen is a selective antioxidant. So the combination of those two, which will always be, you have to have hydrogen. That's what C60 does. It combines with hydrogen and does its beautiful work. So you automatically will have a selective antioxidant because it's grabbing hydrogen. So that's absolutely the case.
Very interesting.
Hey, super quick break from the podcast. Hopefully you're loving it. This is a way you can support the podcast and then take advantage of a great offer. We're offering 50% off of one of our MCT bottles. MCT is an amazing oil. Add the ESS60 molecule to it. It's even more amazing. All you got to do is leave a review on iTunes, send us a notification that you've left that review. We'll get you a coupon code that'll get you 50% off of our MCT oil and free shipping. Back to the podcast.
Compare and contrast hydrogen to like vitamin C, right? A classic antioxidant is vitamin C. What are we looking at? Why are there benefits? And, do we need to stop taking vitamin C because we're getting some hydrogen water?
I have to say, I don't take many supplements in my life. Anyways, I think in many cases it can be expensive, Pete. But the reality is, vitamin C, if it's from fruit or something, it's actually vitamin C. What most people are taking is ascorbic acid, and that's a different answer. But when we look at antioxidants in general, so you have what we call traditional antioxidants, and then you have hydrogen, which is a selective antioxidant, and the only one I know of. So the big question is, can traditional antioxidants be harmful? And the answer is absolutely they can. And I know that's crazy to think because everyone's been taught antioxidant. Every study that I'm aware of that has high dose antioxidants results in cancer. So taking high amounts of antioxidants, not good for you. And let's ask the question why. Why could an antioxidant be a problem? Well, traditionally, unlike hydrogen, it's important that I say that, unlike hydrogen, traditional antioxidants are electron donors. So vitamin C is an antioxidant because it has an extra electron. Now, once it donates that electron, it becomes a pro-oxidant itself. And so the problem with antioxidants is, yes, it helped something else, but now it becomes a burden on the body that the body's got to get rid of. And the body does that, but it puts a burden on the body. And when people are in trouble, sometimes those burdens are problematic. So hydrogen does not have an extra electron. Hydrogen is a signal modulator. So when we talk about pathways like we did earlier, hydrogen is really more of a coordinator or a manager. And I think we all know, we've worked in offices where there's a manager, and sometimes the manager doesn't do a lot, but they get everyone else doing what they're supposed to, and therefore a lot of work gets done. I use that as an example because that's what hydrogen is. Hydrogen does not do the heavy lifting, but it signal modulates, or it gets other things doing what they're supposed to properly. So then a lot of good things are happening in the body. Like when we talk about neuroprotective effects, when we talk about Parkinson's, when we talk about Alzheimer's, when we talk about bipolar, schizophrenia, how could hydrogen help that? Well, in the studies, there was no hydrogen going to the brain, but there was ghrelin, gastric ghrelin, which is an mRNA. It's a great hormone in the body, master hormone, that goes to the hippocampus, the hypothalamus, and the brainstem to increase brain function, or what we call cognitive function. But there was not hydrogen going to the brain. Hydrogen just said, hey, ghrelin, get yourself up there. Let's get to work. And ghrelin goes right on up there and gets to work. And now we have motor skills working properly, brain function working. And so we need to understand that hydrogen, the presence of hydrogen, is what's important because it directs things to happen.
Have you looked at, so ghrelin is clearly something that's on your radar. Have you looked at the things that hydrogen signals, and hey, when we get hydrogen water into people, their amount of ghrelin in their system flowing around their system increases, or their amount of whatever BDNF or anything like that?
Well, out of the 1,400 studies, all your neurologic is related for the most part to ghrelin. We have to understand that nitric oxide, there are 3 types of nitric oxide. There's one that you can only get when you have hydrogen in the body, because hydrogen stimulates that type of nitric oxide. So whether it's nitric oxide, whether it's naturally occurring peptides in the body, hydrogen signals peptides. As I said earlier in this interview, there are so many things that hydrogen does. It's mind-boggling how we function without it. But even when we look at the mitochondria, which is in every cell of the body, typically people who have low energy, especially elite athletes, are sugar and carb loading. When you sugar and carb load, you end up with hydroxyl radicals in the mitochondrial respiratory chain, which is causing a reduction of ATP. Hydrogen stops that process. So we have studies on mitochondria, we have studies on elite athletes showing that when they drank hydrogen water a half an hour before the soccer game, speaking of soccer, these were professional soccer players, they had no exercise-induced muscle decline.
Wow.
And what they found is there was no changes in lactate levels as well. So hydrogen was modulating energy production, and it didn't require lactate, and it didn't require the normal processes that we would think of when we talk about muscle being used up and muscle being fatiguing. But in that study, there was a placebo water, and all the individuals drinking the placebo water, they fatigued at a normal time. But those drinking hydrogen water did not fatigue. They had no exercise-induced muscle decline at all. And so it was a very powerful study. showing that that could be obviously a great thing to drink if you're in elite sports or what have you. Now, we do have basketball players. We have football teams using our water. We have the Dodgers. We've got a lot of organizations, the Raiders and what have you, UFC, Dana White, all these individuals have used our water, love our water. Tom Brady loves Echo Water. And so we have a lot of people that utilize it who are athletes, and they're able to say that they fatigue less. The other thing that they talk about is the recovery times are cut in half.
Mm.
Well, that's a big deal for a lot of athletes because recovery times can be lengthy, and the fact that you're cutting it at least in half is huge for them.
And I think my understanding of selective antioxidant, which really comes from a bodybuilder, a kind of relatively famous guy, Chris Gethin, he loves our product and talks about our product also being a selective antioxidant. And one of the key things of that is if you are loading up on antioxidants and you're training, right? So you're creating some atrophy and then actually rebuilding that muscle, right? So in the case of a bodybuilder, you're trying to build muscle mass and muscle strength. The presence of antioxidants that are not selective can be detrimental to that hormetic response.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. Mitochondrial function, right? So you've talked about so many pathways. Everybody and their brother is talking about mitochondrial function. I literally just had an IG live with Dr. Immo Patel of Me Screen, which is a mitochondrial test. I don't know if you've bumped into him. Fascinating test.
I love Me Screen. The CEO and I are close friends, and we're doing a big project with them.
Oh, very cool. Very cool. Sean, is it?
Yeah. Sean.
Yeah.
Fitch.
Yeah.
Yes.
I got to interview him too. Fantastic. Like,
Yeah, amazing guy. Yep.
Yeah, I love what he's doing. So how do you say, and you've mentioned mitochondria, but how do you think hydrogen fits in kind of mitochondrial function?
Well, you have hydroxyl radicals that are always there, and hydrogen stops that production. So when we think about mitochondria, you're just going to have increased energy production, increased ATP. You're lessening the burden, and that's how hydrogen would help the mitochondria in a very basic way. But yeah, there's tremendous studies on that.
I saw one interview where you were talking about hydrogen mimicking a calorie restricted diet. Talk a little bit about that, please.
Yeah, Obesity Magazine. There's several magazines that have published studies talking about gut and obesity. And so what they showed, and I can send you the little snippet that you could post, but what they showed is that drinking hydrogen water had a similar effect as a calorie restriction diet. And then, of course, they went into different pathways that are being stimulated or modulated by hydrogen. And so it's incredible, because I'm telling you right now, you're not going to drink hydrogen water and lose 50 pounds. It's not a weight loss product, but it does have the same effect as calorie restriction. And so as you are restricting calorie, you will start losing weight normally, right? Mm-hmm. And I can tell you that we've had people, as I mentioned earlier, people with diabetes that were losing pounds, per month, and they would get to a normal, healthy weight. So it is really important that we understand it can perfectly complement a weight loss program. There's actually a program that my wife has started, and I am probably going to watch it closely, because I'm aware of a lady who has now lost 100 pounds, and she could not lose weight in any other program, whether it was peptides, whether it was, all the wonderful injections that are happening, all these kind of things, couldn't do it. And she went on this program that starts with a blood test, and then basically it tells you what foods you should and shouldn't, and it creates a whole menu for you based on your blood test. And she's now lost 100 pounds. So that's wonderful, right? And so hydrogen water would complement that. But I don't want people to think if you just drink hydrogen water, you're going to look like a bikini model right away and have all these things. That's probably not going to happen. But what it will do is it will reduce inflammation. You will start losing weight pretty quickly, typically 8 to 10 pounds pretty quickly for a male. Female, maybe 6 to 7 pounds pretty quickly because of water weight and because of inflammation. But then you start having reduction of inflammation on kidney and your entire pancreatic system. So now you can start eliminating waste out of the body. And now the body can start, again, lowering fat content, because many times fat is surrounding or encompassing waste that the body can't get out. And so it's just a process that starts. Hydrogen can facilitate getting toxins out of the body, getting contaminants out, and being able to have your energy level increase so that your body can actually do what it needs to do. I do want to have or say one other caveat. I do believe there is more people with parasites than they understand.
Mm.
And so doing parasite cleanse can also cause people that are struggling to lose weight. If you take away the typical food that parasites love, they will amazingly, with no food, go away. But this is part of the process. I believe parasites play a role in weight in some people, but that's really important. So we've talked about a bunch of stuff and we've kind of gone back and forth. When we talk about mitochondrial function, we're talking about a hydroxyl radical, but we also have to understand that hydrogen, as I said earlier, reduces oxidative stress. And that's really what's causing the mitochondrial function in the first place. Yes, the hydroxyl radical is the most cytotoxic or most damaging radical in the body, but oxidative stress in general is causing mitochondrial function, cellular function issues. And so hydrogen reduces oxidative stress. And so it takes the burden off your body. And that's really what we want to understand. And that's not just one compartment in the body. It is systemic. It is the entire system of our body. We will have oxidative stress and inflammation reduced. So whether it's joint pain, whether it's your eyes functioning properly, whether it's your brain functioning properly, or other parts of the body, there can be benefits that come from hydrogen, because hydrogen is supposed to be in the body in the first place. And so this is what I want people to understand, is that the source problem is being reduced. Therefore, the problem should go away or lessen. So you have two outcomes: lessened problems or no problems. Both are wonderful. But that's what hydrogen is supposed to do naturally in your body. And when we get hydrogen back in the body, it's going to do it again.
So would you say, okay, one, we're supposed to be producing hydrogen. We're probably not producing it at the rate that we are supposed to be producing it, whether it's, glyphosate or gut dysbiosis. And then you've got water, hydrogen water. Is there another way? I've heard people talk about like bathing in water that's been saturated with hydrogen. Is there like, all costs aside and all time aside, right? Filling a bathtub with hydrogen water is probably not that cost effective. What would be the best way, do you think, to get hydrogen into our system?
The best way and the least expensive is starting with something like this.
Mm.
And I'll tell you, having hydrogen in water is absolutely the best mechanism of delivery, because you're also hydrating yourself, which is highly therapeutic to the body. So we're getting water that's appropriate into our body. We're getting hydrogen into our body. And most important, we're getting hydrogen down into the intestinal tract to help the terrain and the biome. Yes, you can have inhalation. And we are the largest hydrogen company in the world. So we're the largest company with hydrogen water systems. We're the original company. And we have every way to get hydrogen into your body, through water, through breathing, through the bath units. Jake Paul has our bath unit. He posted that all on social media right before his big fight. He had our bath unit. So people that want to have a luxurious bath, they can get our unit that turns your bath water into hydrogen water. And all you do is turn it on and you get in the bathtub, and next thing you know, you've got wonderful milk looking water because there's so much hydrogen in it. And that is going to be beneficial for collagen, for wrinkles, because hydrogen will stimulate collagen synthesis. And so we can have that in our body. We can have wonderful aesthetics. And it's another pathway for hydrogen to get in the body. But the most effective method of a delivery is in water, and we're getting hydrated. And so understand that once hydrogen is in your system, it just makes everything work properly. Those people that are talking about mitochondrial biogenesis, for example, you have PGC1 alpha that is stimulated by hydrogen, right? So that's going to help people with endurance. It's going to help people with metabolic health and cellular aging. Also, you have other pathways, I would say, like there are pro-inflammatory cytokines and cytokine storms that happen. Hydrogen reduces some cytokines and helps other cytokines. So when it modulates cytokines, it's reducing inflammatory response in the body, which is also stopping proper function in the body. So this is why China used inhalation for people with long COVID, is because hydrogen helps cytokine storms. And there's like 11 studies on long COVID, right? So every one of these things is typically always going to be the same answer generally, but then there are certain pathways in each compartment of the body that hydrogen specifically tells to get to work. But it effectively is the same answer every time. So, but there are different things that hydrogen is modulating. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So water is the best way, right? Cost effective, and I don't know if it's mostly cost effective, but we'll go with best way.
Oh, it is most cost effective, yes.
Like for sure. What about tablets? Like I know that you can go out and buy some tablets and throw into water and it bubbles and doesn't taste great.
Yeah, it really doesn't taste good. Tablets are the most expensive way. Like literally it's like 60 cents for a small amount of water. And so here, for example, you can spend $299 and make as much water as you want, and it has a 5-year warranty. So clearly we're on hook for 5 years for you. All you do is charge the battery right there with the USB-C charger and put purified water in it, and then turn it on right here. There it goes. And then just turn on the timer. And it has an app, the Echo Water app, where they can set up a schedule. So let's say you're waking up at 8 a.m. and you say, well, I want the bottle to run for 10 minutes starting at 7:50. That's what the app allows you to do. The app also allows you to change the light color that's inside. If you like a certain color light, you can change that. If you want the set time to be different, you can set that. So this is the world's first smart hydrogen flask that we've patented every way from Sunday. And the reality is you now have something that can fit in the cup holder in your car. You can take on the plane, you can take to work, you can take to the gym, you can take wherever you want. And you can hear, for example, listen to this, when I push this lid. Do you hear that? That's how much pressure we build up, because this bottle can dissolve 8 parts per million and more, but 8 parts per million of hydrogen gas, which is tremendous. So the next logical question would be, what's considered therapeutic? And what is considered therapeutic is half a part per million, but people feel an energy boost at 1 part per million. Well, this is 8 times that. So it's wonderful for people that want to have an energy boost. There are even studies, Chris, on coffee versus hydrogen water, and hydrogen water won out by 10%, that it increased energy better than coffee.
La 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 la. I like that. So,
You're like,
so
I'm
you do
sorry,
both.
we had a glitch there. I couldn't quite hear you.
Yes, I did hear coffee is better, despite the research.
I love it.
Or you do both. I want to
Yes.
get one last question and then get into our wrap up questions. You mentioned like what is a therapeutic dose? Half a part per million.
Hmm.
Does the medical community use hydrogen in treating stuff? Like,
Not as a whole. There, I would say as a whole, the medical community doesn't know anything about hydrogen. Most doctors, MDs, for example, they have no clue. Patient goes, they say, "What do you think?" It's bunk. They've never read the studies. There's 1,400 studies, 20% of those are double blind studies, almost 280 studies. You got 200 disease models. You got no contraindications. You've got serious disease models like colon cancer. There's a study that says hydrogen water can inhibit colon cancer. This is extremely strong language. When you're talking about type 2 diabetes and impaired glucose tolerance, it'll say hydrogen water administration can what? Prevent type 2 diabetes mellitus and IGT or impaired glucose tolerance. I don't know. Is that important to somebody? Because we have almost 30 million people in the United States of America alone that are pre-diabetic. Maybe they'd want to know that drinking a certain type of water could maybe have their eyes not be damaged, or microvascular, macrovascular issues that are going on every day. So I think it's important, and yet most doctors would have no clue. I would say even in the natural medicine industry, there is complete confusion. People are promoting tablets when really this is far cleaner and less expensive. Imagine if it costs you $50 for a bottle of tablets that might last you 1 month, that is $600 a year. This is a 5-year product for $299. So for what 5 months of tablets would cost, this is your friend for 5 years. It's 10x. So it's 10% the cost of the tablets. That's significant, and it tastes a million times better because you can choose what water you put in here. And all that's going in here is H2 gas, nothing else, not any magnesium that's unreacted, none of this stuff. So now we are introducing in the near future a beautiful stick pack that has additional things other than hydrogen in it. So people that have joint issues and gut issues and stuff can be helped, but I'm not fans. I used to sell the tablets. I was the second person to ever sell them. Robert Slovak and I were the two that were selling tablets, probably 2013, 2012. We were selling tablets before even people knew what they were. And the taste is just horrible. And so compliance is low. People hate the taste of them. And this is much better. So that's why I offered and created the bottles and all the stuff so that we could have people do something they would enjoy every day.
I did lie that I do have one extra question. So you start the timer, it finishes, say, at 10 minutes. So like in your example, I'm waking up, it's starting at 7:50. I'm waking up at 8 o'clock. How long does because hydrogen is so small, it goes basically anywhere it wants, right?
Yes.
Is my understanding.
Yes.
How long does it stay in the bottle? Is it leaking through the glass? And do we want to consume it within some sort of time frame?
That's an excellent question. If we put water in a glass like this that's clearly open to the environment, you have 2 hours.
Okay, 2 hours.
2 hours, and the hydrogen will mostly have gone back to atmosphere. When you have it in a bottle like this that you're pressurizing, it's going to last longer, but you would still have a minimum of 2 hours to drink 12 ounces of water. And so if you can't drink 12 ounces of water in 2 hours, we have a coaching class for you, and it's free of charge. Just kidding. That's not true.
It's just a one-time charge.
Yeah, it's like a one-time charge of nothing, but we'll just help you chug, chug, chug. So anyways, the whole point is drink the water quickly. But as we said, I'm gonna do this right next to the microphone. You can hear what that pressure is, and so it's really important to know that this is under pressure. And so as long as you keep the pressure up, then the hydrogen will stay. It's like a soda or a Perrier or something. As long as it's under pressure, the gas will stay in the water. But if you take that pressure off, you've got 2 hours. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yes, perfect sense. All right, let's get into our wrap-up questions.
Okay.
Start, Dr. Paul, do you have a target age that you want to live to?
I don't have a target age. I'll live as long as I'll be here, and I'm enjoying watching crazy. So, the reality is, I'm 52. So I took this thing the other day, and it was like a Hume. Have you seen those things? They're like a scale that analyzes all your,
Yeah.
and it said I was like 28. And I'm like, wow, this is great. So I probably will be around for a while. I don't have any medical issues, but I also might get run over by a Mack truck tomorrow. So I just live my life every day that if it was my last, I treat my wife with love and compassion. She's the love of my life. My son, who is also the love of my life. And I just try to do the best I can. I forgive people from the crazy. And that's the way I live, brother.
So I would suggest that 53 is too short and 150 is too long.
Maybe,
so I'm
yeah.
going to put you, choose some number between.
Well, my favorite number is 8, so let's go 88.
88. I like it. And then do you have any idea, I know this is not your area of expertise, but thoughts on how long humans can live?
Oh, I know there are people living today that are in their 120s in Venezuela. I mean, that's been documented. So I think people can live a long time as long as you're aging gracefully. And I definitely think I'll be in my 80s without even thinking about it. My grandmother is like 92. So I definitely think I'll live older than 88, but we will see a lot of stuff, so it'll be cool. But I'm just happy to be here. I'm happy to continue being a useful engine.
So what are 2 to 3 protocols, habits, mindsets, let's call them shortcuts because everybody likes shortcuts, to longevity and a long health span that you would share?
The first thing that I think is most important, and I know this is probably not what anyone else is saying, but getting good at forgiveness. So being able to forgive yourself and forgive others for the things that they've done knowingly or unknowingly. Some people don't know they do crazy stuff. And so being able to forgive, and I'm not saying put yourself in the situation to be beat up again, maybe walk down a different alley. But the point is there are people that are harmful in our lives, family, friend, whatever it is. I think abuse is inappropriate, and I think any form of abuse should be done away with. But I think we can forgive, and I think we can move away from a person who's abusive, but we can still forgive at the same time. And so the process of forgiving and releasing claim helps us. And so that's what I'm really focusing on, is how it will help you as an individual, not holding claim on someone's life and not holding on to those feelings. Number one. Number two, I think proper sleep is probably the most overlooked health hack there is. And I think, along with forgiveness, positive thoughts, not so many negative thoughts, I think are critical. And so I think between forgiveness, positive thoughts, and getting proper sleep, and drinking hydrogen water.
Of course.
Hello. But so that would be my things. And there's a million other things you can do. You can go down so many different holes and what have you. But I think getting back to the basics, I think having friends, having good conversations every day, moving a little bit, like doing something with your body, those are all things that I think are really important. So kind of doing what they did 100 or 200 years ago.
So this one can be harder sometimes, but maybe 1 or 2 things people get absolutely wrong regarding longevity and a long health span.
I think the most important thing we can focus on for longevity is our gut terrain. I think that we need, I did a dissertation when I became a doctor of naturopathy and ND. I did a dissertation on longevity, and I focused on centenarians. So I studied 4,000 centenarians that we have records of. And what I found is there was no religion, there was no diet, there was no place that they all lived. It's all nonsense. Diet, religion, I mean, there was no commonality. The only commonality I found was they all had their gut bacteria intact. And how they did that was interesting because as I studied them, one person saying you should drink wine every day, another person said you should have ice cream every day, another person, I go in the garden every day and do a little bit of, it's all over the map. But I would tell you that the four things I found that were the same between all these centenarians is, number one, they did recognize some sort of higher power. Whatever that was, it didn't matter. They recognized a higher power. Number two, they had friends, and they would typically on a daily basis communicate with someone who was a friend or a lover or a spouse or whatever. They would have meaningful conversation. Number three, they would go outside. Like they left their residence, and whether it was to walk around the block or to work in a garden or to jump up and down, whatever. And then they would make sure that they went to spend time with loved ones or friends on a daily basis. Those were the four things that I found that they all shared. And again, there was nothing specific about diet or anything else. It was just they were enjoying life a little more.
Awesome. Dr. Ball, how can people contact you?
They can go to our website, Echo Water, ECHO, and then water.com. So just Echo, ECHO, water.com. That's the best place. We do have Instagram and we have social media stuff out there. I'm not on there a lot, but if you go to echowater.com, that's where you would go and connect with the staff. There's a chat, there's phone number, call us. We are headquartered in Utah. We sell worldwide. We ship worldwide. We're the largest in the world. And so you can trust that all the who's who uses our products. And so thank you.
Very cool. And what in the near future are you excited about?
I'm excited for travel I'm doing this year. I'm planning to go to Greece and to Philippines, and we manufacture these in the Philippines in our own factory. So I'm excited to go and see all that and enjoy that. I'm Italian, so we will be going to Italy this year as well. But I just enjoy life. And what I'm most excited about is watching my wife and son continue to progress in life. That brings me so much happiness.
That's awesome. All right. You can find him at echowater.com, ECHO water.com. Dr. Paul, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Live Beyond the Norms podcast. Make sure to subscribe and follow. Also, make sure not to be that guy, the guy sharing this podcast with people who are not interested in living beyond the norms. If you would like to learn more about the ESS60 molecule, the molecule responsible for the single longest longevity experimental result on mammals in history, a full 90% extension of life, visit myvitalc.com. That's myvitalc as in carbon.com.